Well, good morning, everyone. It is Monday, June 3rd. I would like to welcome you to the Whitestown Redevelopment Commission meeting. So first item on the agenda is a roll call.
Brian Brackmeyer.
Here.
Kyle Weathers.
Present.
April Wyckoff.
Present.
Adam Hess. Clinton Baum.
Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. We did not receive any public requests to speak, but would like to open up the floor if anyone would like to do so. Seeing no volunteers, we'd like to move along to the approval of the meeting minutes from April 1st of 2019. Everyone get a chance to review those. Any questions, concerns, comments? If not,
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
we have a motion. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Any additional discussion? So, seeing a motion a second, we'd like to go ahead and open up for a vote. So those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from April 1st, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Reedy report for financial TIF report. So, gentlemen from Reedy, please. Oh, good.
Ready to go. So we got two things we're working on today. The June 15th reporting requirement, which is the reporting requirement showing that the Redevelopment Commission has a need for its funds in the coming year and making its determination on excess AV. So you have a resolution for that that you'll be going over later this meeting. We also have the July 1st reporting requirement, which is the presentation. It's the first time we're doing this. It's brand new as of this year. There'll be an annual presentation that we'll do, just informing overlapping units of their impact. So I prepared a presentation, and hopefully we'll be able to get to work.
Would you mind holding the microphone a little bit closer to you for everyone?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
So we have a presentation that hopefully we'll be able to go over that shall outline the different impacts for the different units that we have and kind of give a little bit of background information, things of that nature. It's going to cover three main topics. What's the budget for 2019? What are the long-term plans for each allocation area? And then the individual impact to each of the units. Wonderful. Not good. This is not what I was looking for.
Just received a note that James and Jeopardy might have lost tonight. They had world shattering news.
Okay, we'll go about it this way. That's not going to work, is it? We don't have it. Yeah. Sorry. We'll just get it online now if we have access to internet. so sorry. You have a PowerPoint? Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'll show you this one. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So to start off, we're going to talk a little bit kind of general. What is an RDC and how does it function? Just kind of fill in a little bit of information for anyone that may find that helpful. So a redevelopment commission basically is a device that cities and towns and counties can use in order to incentivize for increased employment opportunities, attract new business, retain and expand business in an area. So they find a location in the city or town and say, okay, we're going to make this an economic development area. We're going to create a plan, and we're going to say, these are the things we want to do in order to make employment better and make things better for our community. Once they have that plan in place, they go about attracting new development, and that new development will in turn turn into tax increment financing, which is the revenue source that RDCs use for ongoing development and projects that they want to pursue. Tax increment financing, that revenue source, what that is, it's a growth in assessed value from an economic development area, and that growth in assessed value is the additional growth that they have caused. So it's not just, you go to an area and now everything's yours. Essentially, it's a new growth, the new development that's came because of a result of the RDC having a hand or a play in something. A couple reasons why you would want to have a redevelopment commission or a TIF district. It attracts capital investment to the area. It attracts new residents to the community. You got more jobs. More people want to come there and live. Promotes economic development in an otherwise maybe stagnant area. It allows for the redevelopment to be self-funded through self-assessed value growth. So as you're making that new development, you're receiving the funds from the projects you created, and then you're able to create that snowball effect and keep on having more development and make the area even better. It provides a financing tool for redevelopment, and it makes the issuance of debt and TIF revenue a little bit less restrictive. It doesn't require a petition or a referendum, which is kind of nice. So when you have these new developers that want to do projects you like, you can say, okay, we can do these things, and they have a little bit more leniency. So you can actually make projects happen that may otherwise not be able to be done. So reporting requirements. With having an RDC, there's a few things you have to do per state statute. The first thing is the April 1st reporting requirement. The clerk treasurer has to have an annual report to the RDC saying what your activities were for the past year, so you're kind of updated. Then before April 15th, that same report needs to go in front of the executive body, which would be the town council, saying, okay, these are the things we did last year, kind of giving a financial update. Then the June 15th is the determination of excess incremental value, which we'll be doing later in this meeting, the resolution. The July 1st is the presentation we're doing now, which is a presentation to all overlapping units, going over the budget, long-term plans, and the impact that it has on each unit. The following reporting requirement is the neutralization reporting requirement, and this goes into determining what the revenues will be for next year. That's kind of done in the backhand of things. So kind of an overview of TIF, tax increment financing, and the revenue source, that snowball effect that RDCs have. So in an allocation area, there's two types of assessed value. There's base assessed value, and there's incremental assessed value. The base assessed value is that all that AV that was before the growth. So again, we're really wanting to focus the RDC, it's the new stuff, it's the growth, which is the increment. So any AV that was existing at the time the TIF was established, that's all base. And then anything that doesn't meet one of the four incremental buckets. And those buckets are new construction, so if there's a new building that's the RDC had a hand in, that'll be incremental, so that's new growth. If there's an abatement that was rolling off, so if there was a new building and then they also had an abatement, so the taxes weren't coming until a later time, that would then go, again, to the RDC because it had a hand in it. Destruction would negatively affect, so if we go down and there's a building and we take it down, that would be a negative effect increment that the RDC had a hand in. And then appeals have a kind of a wash effect, if accounted for, where if there's a new appeal coming, they can account for it. So when the AV goes down, it just kind of washes out, so the RDC can continue to pay its bonds, things of that nature. That picture is kind of an example. The green is that base assessed value, so it stays there forever. It's never going away. The incremental assessed value, the goal is they get a little bit of growth, and then that growth funds some more growth, and it starts to grow exponentially. And at the end of the life of the TIF, you've got that a lot of AV getting passed back to the units. So the industrial park economic development area, this budget, it's a little hard to see. Sorry about the small print.
Is this the same that was in your report?
Will it be the same numbers that's on the reports? That's the 2019 information. Cash in for Perry, which is the green one on the report, was $1.2 million at the beginning of the year. The revenue collections were expected to be $2.2 million. The only obligations we have coming out for this allocation area is the $1.8 million for the bonds that were issued in 2016, and some bank fees that are associated with that. That would end the surplus for the year of $468,000 and an ending cash balance of $1.7 million. Moving forward, as far as long-term plans are in play, it's paying off the bond as it takes up the majority of the revenues for that area. Maple Grove, which is the yellow one on the document you guys have in front of you, it had a cash balance of a little bit over $1 million. It has revenue collections of a little bit over $800,000. It's expected to have a little bit of a public safety lease payments of $155,000. It also has a bond of $349,000, and there's another a lit public safety bond of $85,000 that it takes care of. It also has some of the professional services come out of this allocation area. So it will surplus $170,000 with an ending cash balance of $1.2 for 2019. Long-term plans for this allocation area is to help pay off the city's ban and the public safety radio equipment, and kind of that public safety pledge bond, taking care of those things. The next allocation area is the Anson South Economic Development Area. There's a little bit over $147,000 beginning 2019. Had TIF revenues of $474,000. Their bond for this allocation area is $330,000, so it's surplusing about $144,000. And long-term plans, kind of like the Perry allocation area, is the same thing to take care of this bond, which kind of helped Anson South in its development. The next allocation area is the Fishback Creek, also known as the McCardwell allocation area, or economic revitalization area. Its beginning balance was $9,000. It's only been in existence for a couple years, so it's a little bit smaller. It doesn't have as much cash coming in at $28,000. And then we don't have any foreseeable expenses this year, as we're just kind of in the first years trying to build up a little bit of AV and get projects ready. I know there are some various upcoming capital projects that we're considering in that area, so likely that's what we'll be going for in the future. Next few areas were established in 2018, so they don't have any assessed value coming in, but they are an allocation area and therefore have to be brought up. The NDOT or Gershman Economic Development Area is a new area. It's going to be working with the I-65 interchange, and it has some capital projects with Gershman. The Green Park Economic Development Area, same kind of scenario, be working with the Green Park development that we're likely going to be doing in the future. And the Mauer Commons redevelopment area is another one of those brand new areas that hasn't kind of developed yet. Legacy Corp. This is an area that's existed for a little while. However, it doesn't have a whole lot of assessed value coming in. And for its long-term plan, we're looking to kind of make that happen, generate some assessed value. A little bit of background regarding TIF impact, just so everyone's a little aware. 2018, we did a AIM conference where we kind of talked about, with Barnes and Thornburg, and we talked about TIF impact. And we did a couple analysis where we did a very detailed, long process of looking at every single parcel and kind of came up with some correlations so we can easily determine and estimate how these things will function in the future. So circuit breaker is a really big factor on what your impact's going to be, where you stand in terms of circuit breakers, really going to correlate highly to what's going on with your TIF impact. So Boone County is ranked 54th out of 92. So if you want a bigger number, ranked 1 would be worse because that's the worst circuit breaker. So 54 is pretty good. As you can tell, the middle, like on the chart, you're on the bottom half. You're not necessarily in the middle of the pack, but you guys are a little bit below half, which is nice, which means your impact is going to be less than it could be in other communities. The next slide's got the impacts on there. Before I move into that, I want to kind of just preface it with it's a conservative estimate, so it's going to show a little bit higher than what it really would be. And it's also a hypothetical impact. So for this impact to be 100% true, you have to think of it kind of like a time machine. We hopped in, we go all the way back before any of the developments, we don't offer any of the things that we necessarily did through the RDC, and everything's right where it is today. Or if we did do those things, we just abolished the RDC today, what would happen? We're kind of at that end of that 25-year when it goes away. So here okay, so we got our TIF impact chart here. So we got each of the different units. You got Boone County, Whitestown, Civiltown, Zionsville, Civiltown, Worth Township, Zionsville Community School, Lebanon Community School, and the library. The first column there is the impact in terms of circuit breaker. So this is how much less circuit breaker they'd see on an annual basis. Between all the units, it's a total of $893,000 worth. The highest impacted unit is the Zionsville Community School of that total impact. And then comes the town, followed up by Boone County. In terms of the budget, if you were to put it in perspective of how many dollars they have themselves to work with, the Whitestown's the highest, 2.18%, with everyone else being under a percentage point, and Lebanon Community School being the lowest, or actually Zionsville Civiltown being at 0%, the lowest as percent of the impact of the budget. So also keep in mind, so that time machine concept, or the TIF going away, you're going to, if that impact, that $893,000, you're either going to have that, or you're going to have the revenue collections you're getting in the TIF, because the TIF is going to be gone for that circuit breaker to be less. So right now the TIF collected combined $3.2 million in revenue, so that would go away, and you'd see the reduction in the circuit breaker of about $800,000. So it's a little bit of a trade-off there. As far as benefits go, we kind of have this concept of TIF margin, which is that difference. So you would see $83,000, but you're currently getting $3.2 million, so you're getting a little bit more. So there's a margin there that you're getting by having the RDC. It's kind of 73 cents is what that comes to on the dollar. So for every dollar in the RDC, 73 cents of that's new money that otherwise would be gone because you'd only see the 800,000 instead of the 3.2 million. Also, those projects, realistically, time machine isn't really going to work. So Anson South, that might be something that wasn't able to get accomplished without the RDC. The I-65 interchange projects that we've done might have been stuff that we didn't get to see, and the industrial companies and all the attraction we've had. So it's some of the good things. As far as the presentation and the July 1st report, that's kind of what we have. Do you guys have any questions for us? All right.
Well, this question could either be for this presentation or maybe for later in the council for Steve. So I'll go ahead and throw it out. For when you look at the Fishback Creek ERA and you look at the beginning cash balance and then what we expect revenue is going to be for the year, when you look at what we're going to be approving later is basically saying that our TIF areas will not generate more than 200% of the amount that's in the existing TIF. Is there a threshold associated with that too? Because this TIF is really just now established, and we're talking about $15,000 to $30,000. Were we getting pretty close to that? Is that something that we need to consider about allocating funds elsewhere?
And on this, no, we don't need to. We're okay on this until we issue a bond or something. We're fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for the gentleman from Reedy?
Which, when they start to develop it,
it will.
We will.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Seeing no unfinished business, we'll go ahead and move on to new business. And item A is to consider a resolution approving 6 Duke abatement applications, which is Resolution 2019-6. Do you believe we have a representative from Duke? Kate, were you planning on presenting this evening or giving a quick overview? Or Molly? Or if you would, that would be great.
Is this what? Is your computer? There we go. All right. Molly Whitehead, Executive Director of the Boone County Economic Development Corporation. These 6 buildings are all in All Points and Anson. As a refresher, the All Points development is a joint venture between Duke Realty, Browning Investments, and they are the ones that have made this request. So there are 6 buildings that Duke right now is proposing to potentially build on spec. There are no users that have been identified. However, the benefit of going ahead and getting approvals, not only from Planning Commission, but from Redevelopment Commission, from Town Council, is that as we do identify users that could potentially go in, that just gives us that extra leg up to be able to move that much quicker. So these 6 buildings, they range in size from smallest is 75,000 square feet. The largest is a little over 650,000 square feet. Some of them could be divisible as well. And what we're recommending here is a traditional 10-year tax abatement, real property tax abatement that is comparable to all of the other buildings in the All Points Business Park. That's the same abatement schedule that they have all received. And we're estimating a total capital investment around $81 million, and that would be a savings to Duke and Browning around $10 million over that 10-year period, and a levy around $10.2 million to the town and all the taxing units. This did go before the Boone County Redevelopment Commission and Boone County Commissioners a couple of weeks ago, got unanimous approval from both bodies. Of course, goes to you all, and then with your favorable recommendation to Town Council next week.
That's right. Speed to market is obviously so important, so having buildings out of the ground, or I guess ready to go, is great for everything that you do promoting the county. Has there been any discussion about when construction will start, or is it waiting until a tenant would be identified?
Looking at potentially, you'll see in the application documents around 2020, that could change again, could be quicker, might be a little bit slower. A lot of the buildings in All Points, actually, the ones that have already been constructed, many of them received abatement approval 10 years ago, and you just kind of go with the market tells you to do. So it is the speed to business factor that's most important in this case.
Any questions for Molly?
I have none.
If not, would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2019-6.
Mr. President, I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-6.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Any further discussion? If not, would like to entertain a vote. So those in favor of adopting Resolution 2019-6, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is item B, which is to consider a resolution approving Park 130 abatement application, which is Resolution 2019-7. Let's see, Mr. Baroker, how are you?
Good, Mr. President, members of the Commission, esteemed Council, and Town Manager. Welcome. Andy Baroker at Bakery Baker Daniels, with offices at 600 East 96th Street, Indianapolis. I represent the petitioner and developer tonight, the 5 entities that own this as tenants in common. With me is Larry Sigler, who's with Peterson Construction, one of the owners of the project. As Mr. President, he's passed out, this is for Phase 2. So Park 130 received, we got our EDA approved last year, and Phase 1, which was buildings 1 and 2, that abatement was approved last year. And as you talked to Speed to Market, we started construction last June, and Larry will talk to you about those buildings are up. One will be done in July, one will be done in September, and Larry will talk about the great results we've had with respect to utilizing those buildings with users right away. So this is Phase 2 for buildings 3 and 4. We anticipated and discussed with the town having this be a phase development last year. This is Phase 2 of 3, 2 more buildings will be the last phase, and we're coming to you now so we can utilize fully the 10-year tax abatement for when these get started and hopefully built. They are ready to start construction on buildings 3 and 4 yet this year. So this is on Commerce Drive, as you can see. These 2 buildings are larger than the first 2. So sites 3 and 4, building 3 is 319,000 square feet. Building 4 is 661,000 square feet anticipated. 17 acres of land for building 3 or site 3, 35 acres for site 4. So it's fairly large. So this farmland currently, just for phase 2, these 2 parcels pay approximately $9,000 a year in property taxes. So over the course of 10 years, about $91,000 of property taxes would be paid. With this development and as built out, the annual over 10 years, that $91,000 grows to $9,430,000. So 100-fold, I guess, if you're doing the math. Am I doing the math right, guys? Because accountants are here. So 100-fold. So again, TIF really working, and we're using TIF to do stormwater, sewer, water lines, and Commerce Drive, building the road. So about $3.7 million of that would be abated over the course of the 10 years on a reducing schedule, but $5.6 million of it wouldn't be. So again, $5.6 million over $91,000, still a pretty significant increase in the tax coffers over the 10 years, and then fully paying after the 10 years. So the jobs we described in phase 1 were for the entire project built out of Park 130. So that number stays the same for phase 2, 276 to 424. That's for the entire project, conservatively estimated today. Phase 1, after completion, will be an investment of slightly over $20 million. Phase 2, these 2 buildings combined, the improvements in construction costs will be over $34 million. So a sizable investment in these 2 buildings, showing they're larger.
Is that, so that for phase 2 is the 34 for the total, just phase 2? It's not all encompassing of phase 1?
Just phase 2, yeah. Not an estimate on phase 3. So now I want to call Larry up and just describe sort of the current status of things as they are being constructed now in phase 1. Larry?
Larry Signer with Peterson, here representing the Park 130 owners. First thing I want to say is thank you for the first 2 abatements that we received, a year ago. I'm not sure if people show up to say thank you, but I do want to say thank you to you guys. The first building was 168,000 square feet, and before it was half completed, we had a lease for the entire amount, a single tenant. Opus Packaging, they're kind of a Midwest company headquartered in southern Michigan, and they're expanding down here to central Indiana. The second building, again, halfway through construction, we got a full tenant lease with Maxxis Tire. They're an international company, actually headquarters, I think, over in Europe. And so that we are both we're doing the tenant improvements on both of those right now to get those guys moved in. One tenant needs 9,000 square feet of office, and the other needs 16,000 square feet of office. So while I don't have the exact employee count, I know there's going to be some more bodies working there in the office part of that.
The office generates more employees, so
right.
That is good and wasn't anticipated last year.
So with that, we're looking to go to buildings 3 and 4, and yes, this isn't just kind of getting it on the shelf to use whenever. This is we're planning to go break ground this year on buildings both 3 and 4. So with that, if you have any questions, we have to answer.
So you said you're planning to break ground this year on both?
Yes, for sure on building 3 and most likely on building 4.
Great. Any questions for Andy or Larry? Great project, gentlemen. Like we were talking about earlier, speed of market's so important, but also great to see activity for phase 1 has moved so quickly. So unless there's any questions, comments, concerns, I would entertain a motion for Resolution 2019-7.
Mr. President, I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-7.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Any further discussion? If not, we'd like to go ahead and open a vote. So those in favor of adopting Resolution 2019-7, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Moving along to item C is to consider a resolution approving Project Arrow abatement application, which is Resolution 2019-8. Hello again.
Hi again, Molly Whitehead, doing EDC. Project Arrow. This is Puma North America. This will be a distribution center, and they're considering a lease. They're still in the final negotiation stages of that lease, as I understand it. Their facility is the 635,000 square foot. It's at 3519 Perry Boulevard. Looking at for this facility, up to 90 new employees, average wage a little over $18 an hour, and personal property investment, though, of $40 million, which for a logistics and distribution facility is significant. We're recommending, this is separate from what their request was, we're recommending a 4-year non-traditional personal property tax abatement, year 1 at 100%, year 2 at 75%, year 3 at 50%, year 4 at 25%, and then it would fall off past that point. And if that is provided, then we would anticipate a levy around $1.5 million just for the personal property, and estimating around 10% being Boone County employees, which I believe is probably a little conservative, but probably not too far off. Looking around 130 million or 130,000.
I like the other number better.
Sorry, first day back from vacation, a little rusty. 130,000 in local income taxes, split up between Boone County and Whitestown over a 10-year period is what we're estimating. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you would have.
Because it was different what they proposed in their application versus
Correct.
what you're proposing, can you give the breakdown of the year 1 through 4 again?
So it would be a 25% step down, starting 100% year 1, 25% being that last year. How we arrive at those numbers, those recommendations, we take a look at comps in the area. And so we took a look at several, there were about 3 projects in Whitestown, all roughly about a year ago. They were all logistics and distribution. They're all roughly in the same area. They're all roughly paying the same wages. Capital investment kind of fluctuates, but when you're looking in that $17 to $19 an hour range, this is comparable to what other companies have received for this sort of project.
Great. Any questions from
I'm
all?
sorry, how many employees would this bring in?
90.
90? Okay.
Correct.
And then a
Thank
$40
you.
million investment.
And they're looking to start hiring 3rd and 4th quarter of this year.
I'm particularly in favor of the abatement schedule that Molly's proposed. Don't think we need to be as aggressive for projects that we have very similar type of wages and skill sets here. Other than that, I think it's a good project. Thank you for all your work on it.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? If not, would entertain a motion for take any action on Resolution 2019-8.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-8
Which abatement schedule would that be?
with the 4-year abatement schedule.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Any further discussion? If not, would open up for a vote. So those in favor of approving Resolution 2019-8 with a 4-year abatement schedule of 25% for each year, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Moving on to item D is to consider a resolution approving TIF revenues, which is 2019-9. Hello again.
Hello. It's just so great sitting there and seeing all the things I was talking about. Like, hey, they got more improvement. Look at that development. Good stuff. So the resolution 2019-9, it's going over the excess AV, that 200%. So that 2% saying that you're showing that you have at least the need to spend half the money that you're bringing in each allocation area. 200 is half, 100 would be a balanced budget, and anything under 100% would show you're using your cash balance. I believe every single area we have that's bringing in revenue for the next year, we have under 200% in terms of projections, which shows that the Redevelopment Commission does have, in fact, a need for their revenues that they're currently generating, in short.
So under 200%, but then again, that Fishback Creek is about 190%, so pretty close. But again, not much revenue in there, and then there will be some significant expenses coming there soon.
And I was looking at, they show miscellaneous capital improvement expenses out of that until the developer is ready to move forward with their project and issue the bonds, and there'll be a developer bond,
Yeah.
and it will all be needed to basically pay the developer back for the infrastructure that they'll put in.
Any other words of wisdom, Steve?
Nope.
Good. Any questions from the gentleman from Reedy or from legal counsel?
Is there an how is this being allocated? This TIF revenue that you're speaking of, or is this just over my head here?
No, which page you got in front of you there?
I'm sorry?
What page you got in front of you there? Oh, okay, so, yeah, what's your question again? Sorry.
Which page, which one are you looking at? Are you looking at a particular
I don't have anything in front of me, I'm sorry. I missed the breakout of it.
Yeah, so the majority of each allocation area has most of them have a bond, which shows for over half. I think the only allocation areas that currently don't have the bond is the 3 new ones that were last year, and then the Cardwell, which likely will in the future, and Legacy Corps.
Most of them are, the bonds are to build the infrastructure there for the site, so the revenue that's going in there is going to pay off the bond.
Okay.
A good example, April, is the Maple Grove South TIF is one that's listed in there. That's everything around here, and it was used to purchase this building, put improvements into this building,
Right.
and now it's also being used to help pay for the new police station.
Correct, yeah. Okay, thank you. I'm good.
Any other questions, comments, concerns, celebrations? If not, we'll entertain a motion for Resolution 2019-9.
Mr. President, I will make a motion to approve a Resolution 2019-9.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Any further discussion? If not, would entertain a vote. So those in favor of adopting Resolution 2019-9, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Thank you. And then next on the agenda, item E is an economic improvement district, which is part of the bus route discussion, and have Nathan Messer to give us some words of wisdom.
Yeah, I'll try and be quick with this. There's a lot that I could cover. I've been thrown into this, and it's a whirlwind of information. What we're trying to do is find a way to fund the connector route to continue it running. And one of the things we've looked at is an EID. That's what Plainfield has done, which is Economic Improvement District. With that, it's a voluntary tax, so the businesses have to sign on. 60% of the business owners and 60% of the AV both have to commit to come in on this. We've talked to Kelly and Associates, who did Plainfield's 2 EIDs. There's representatives here if there are any questions for them later. But the plan is it's about $60,000 to $70,000 to do the study. It's $10,000 a month. We have about $30,000 that'll be left at year end that's in the fund. It would carry the current connector out into March. Does no good if it goes to March and there's nothing there. So we would like to use that $30,000 to start the study, get 3 months in. During this time, we want to secure 4 businesses to sit on a board with myself, to be a 5-member board, to look at, come up with a rate, see what level of service we want to do, present it to these businesses. After the $30,000 is expunged, then those 4 businesses that are coming in are each putting in $5,000. 1 has already committed, 2 want a little further information in a meeting before they commit, and we have a lineup of other people who want to talk further about that 5th position. So those businesses will decide whether it's 3.9 cents, 5-whatever cents per 100 of AV. But then that'll get us through 50,000. We'll come back at some point during this, present where we're at with it to the board, and could potentially need another 20,000 to get across the finish line on the study. Once that's completed, then these funds will be self-generated by the tax revenue from those businesses using the connector route, and then this board could stay in place to also help future, once those revenues go up with new businesses coming in, how those funds will be spent, whether it's taking the route from once an hour to once every half hour, adding additional routes, marketing, however that's to be determined. But this is mainly asking the RDC permission to move forward with Kelly and Associates, knowing that we'll probably be coming back. If it goes on a positive path to ask for money, we'll do that when we have numbers to bring you to show whether it is or isn't looking to be successful. Initial talks with businesses, we feel they really want this. A lot of them are open to the EID. No one likes paying additional taxes, but they do want the connector route to stay in place. So what I'm asking tonight is just permission to move forward. And I have Kelly and Associates and Serta here if there's any questions for either of them.
So just a little overview. We have $30,000 of reserves from the initial funding round that we did last year. Right now, it's kind of working with the businesses to establish that EID, and now looking for ways to work with Cinda, and the group to kind of help establish this EID and move forward. So right now, looking for approval to, I guess, pass on the $30,000 reserves that we have, and then the businesses will partake in that. Then if there's anything moving forward, if this decides that we want to continue to do it, then we'll have to have additional $20,000 of funding, but I think it's good. Glad you're able to connect with a lot of businesses and kind of show the importance of this. So, and looking for approval just to start the study tonight?
Yes, just looking for approval to get it going and then come back at a later date to show you we have 50% interest, it's not looking good, or hey, we have 90% interest and we think this is really something. So far we've talked, no one has said they don't want it. Mm-hmm. They feel it's a very good thing to have the option.
Steve, since we've already approved the funds for the Whitestown connector, fun night, but since we have $30,000 left in reserves, do we need to make any sort of special motion, or is it just basically saying that we're fine to continue to move forward and start the study?
So you're taking out of that's why I was looking at the fund availability. Where are you taking it from?
Well, it's from the initial reserves that we passed through.
Oh, there's money that's left over in
yes.
That wasn't. If you guys just, for clarity's sake, want to just go ahead and make a motion to approve expending the funds that are left over for that purpose, that would be good.
Okay.
So will that close discussion, or two quick questions? Do we know what ridership is currently?
Yeah.
And how's it funded currently?
So ridership, I'd have to go pull numbers on that. They're not as strong as I would hope. I was kind of skeptical when I first looked in, but the businesses really love the option. They feel it can continue to grow, getting word out, which is part of this. These funds will be spent on marketing to increase that ridership. And then going with the second route, we believe will, because the current Traders Point route's on every half hour. So people can spend up to 3 hours of their day trying to travel to and from work. Trying to fix that issue, which we hope to do through the connector, can help a lot. The numbers, a lot of people are riding in, not riding home. They're catching rides with friends or somebody to get them back to the bus route in a faster manner. But I'd have to pull the stats. I can get those for you. Definitely before I come back in, we'll get a lot more information. And then currently it's being funded through a grant, $60,000 a year from Amazon, who's the highest user, and money that the RDC committed to make ends meet on the connection. I believe, and I wasn't a part of it then, what we're looking at excess is pretty much what the ridership fees have been over that period. I mean, there just may be some cost savings that weren't projected in the costs.
Yeah, and the point of establishing the EID is it's that self-imposed tax on the business community, so those that use it end up paying for it.
And you said 60% have to vote for it, and then the rest are included if 60% vote for it?
Yes, so it has to be 60% of owners and 60% of AV. So you may have 90% of the AV, but if 60% owner, you only count as one owner. You could own 10 buildings, but you're only one owner. So you have to have 60% of owners and 60% of AV, I believe is correct. Yes. I'm learning a lot about this stuff. It makes my head hurt.
But so, point of my question, then the balance of those, maybe if there's 30% that aren't in favor, they would be opted into the optional tax, or just the 60% that vote in favor of it?
I believe all within the district. Yes, everyone within the district. So somebody can't just, well, I'll hold out and I'll pay the tax and benefit. But it's also defining that district. And we hope for a higher than 60%. When I come back to you, I'd hope you would expect more than 60% before imposing a tax.
Is there going to be any investment in the technology of the passes? I remember that the ridership was down because there was only one-way passes and there was no way to do a round trip option.
You want to come speak to the microphone? That way they can hear you. Brought any experts.
Thank you.
Normally Andrew attends these meetings, but he's on vacation, so how dare he take a break. We have just ordered some new 10-trip passes. These have a holographic effect on them to prevent potential counterfeiting of the passes. What is your concern regarding the round trip?
I recall when we had this discussion, it was like in the winter, correct? There was a issue with, as you were alluding to, riders getting a ride home, and it wasn't funded properly because of that, because we were losing money because there was less riders on the way back. So one of the things that was impacting that was the way that the passes were bought and the technology. And I was just wondering, is there any plans of addressing that issue?
Sure. I think long-term, with some of the changes that are going on in the Indianapolis bus routes, we're looking at really far out having some kind of fare integration. I'm not really sure in previous years what you're exactly referring to, but one thing that I can speak to is for a lot of the employees that are going out to these businesses, some of them are working second and third shifts, and right now we only have enough money to fund a route from 5:15 in the morning until 7 p.m. at night. So sometimes what happens is some folks going out for that second shift work, they can catch it to work, but the connector isn't running late enough for them to make that return trip. That could be one thing that's affecting it as well.
And is there any plans of having a stop somewhere over in this area to take people?
We could absolutely consider it. We have had some requests from some businesses to alter the route slightly. There is enough leeway time in the completion of the route. It takes about 40 to 45 minutes, and so the schedule is set on an hour. There is some leeway time in there to add additional stops as well.
Thank you.
Sure. Sir, could I was going to answer your question about ridership. In 2018, the average per month was about 700 riders. In 2019, we're seeing that between 500 and 600. But we did hear that during the peak season, that has a lot of ridership that helps bring that average up. We did hear from some of our community outreach reps that go out to the businesses that they did hire fewer seasonal workers this past winter, which could be driving some of the lower numbers that we're seeing right now.
That's unique riders or rides?
Rides, my apology.
So how would that compare to some of the other municipalities that have the similar service?
Whitetown is in the middle in terms of ridership between our three different connectors. South Plainfield has the highest. They average about 2,000 or so a month. That is a really dense area in the South Plainfield district. North Plainfield, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's a little bit lower, between 400 and 500 rides per month, that is.
And do you have ridership per stop? I know that was a question I've asked in the past.
I do. Traders Point has the most because that's the connection stop.
Right.
We only track ridership in terms of boardings and not deboardings. Traders Point's around 1,000 year to date for 2019. Amazon has the highest ridership. There's two different stops for Amazon. The first stop at the first store so far has been about 500 for 2019. That second stop is around 400. Another company that's we're seeing a lot of ridership is Cummins at about 127 rides so far in 2019.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So, Nathan, you're asking for the ability to go ahead and transfer the $30,000, or not transfer, to make available the $30,000 in funds to go ahead and initiate this process, and then at a later time and come back and we'll evaluate where we are if we need additional funding.
Yes, I'll come back at that time. And to address another with the Realty Link and the development to the south, is we've talked through this process of looking at whether we could even create a north-south district or one district and interloop that. So they'll be in the conversations to see their interest. Right now we know the warehouse district is. New companies like PTS coming in are really interested in it. The developers, the land brokers. It helps check a lot of boxes for these companies coming in, and that's definitely something people want. But we do see a benefit down here, as you might have gone to Taco Bell at some point and realized they're closed due to lack of employment. They've had a lot of issues lately. We would like to see that solved too if we can through this.
And last question, is there a reasoning for just a four-person board from companies on there? Is there any way we can expand that? Because would really hate to have to come back for additional funding after the RDC has funded the past couple of years of this.
If you'd like, I can. The thought in keeping it was getting skin in the game from some of the bigger, but also keeping the board small enough to where we're not 10 people sitting in the room arguing about whether it's another route or more to marketing, or keeping the funds fares low versus worrying about ridership and just being able to check a box because they say, hey, there's a route, versus actually benefiting from the route. It was just more of a, but I don't see any issue if we can get more to come in and we could even look at going to a 9-member board, and then that would allocate all the rest of the funds to where we wouldn't have to come back to the RDC for funding.
Any other questions for Nate?
So this money's coming, this was a surplus, correct? This is not going to impact the rest of the year?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you for the update, Nathan.
Yeah, thank you for taking the reins on this.
So I'll make a motion that we allocate the rest of the funds to the study.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no.
Do I need the board also to okay the creation of the committee? Or is that something I can do separately? Or
I envision that the council would want to create a committee for this.
okay.
So I think it's something we should put on the council agenda for next week.
Even though the funds were coming from the RDC?
I mean, if
They're creating committees with our
the
money?
council likes to create committees. So.
What would you prefer?
I just prefer to get a committee regardless of how and move forward with it. It's using the council or the RDC either to create it, whether if they could appoint a member, even if it's maybe the RDC appoints a member to work with me to build it and council appoints a member. That way, as businesses come in, we're not waiting a month to come back in front of the board to allocate that specific member. But to go out and get those members, so I don't know what's...
I mean, it's the committee's not exercising the power of the town. So we don't have to formally do it, but I know that the council likes to weigh in on when we're creating committees. And so, Jason and I and Brian, we can talk with the council and maybe have some input if you guys want to give some input to the council on what you would like to see. And I think if you guys make a couple of appointments and the council makes a couple, I expect they would go along with that.
Okay. Which means I don't need to.
I would agree.
Okay. I think we're done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we depart, wanted to thank Molly and her team from the Boone EDC for preparing all the CF1 forms for us. I believe those were sent out to the rest of the commission, so please review those when we get a chance. Nothing crazy in there, which is good news. So we like. So thank you for preparing all that. Any other items to come before the commission? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Mr. President.
We have a second.
I second.
Have a great night, everybody.